What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Crossover. You'll be watching What If Naruto Was Chosen to Become a Dragon God by Kurama Part 7. Now, let's begin. Upon sensing that something was amiss, Tikal promptly lost control before he could identify the source. Nevertheless, the cat was not going to remain silent about the matter, as there are instances when one must rely on their instincts. Master, I felt an unsettling awareness, as if someone was observing us just moments ago. Tikal approached Naruto as he was simultaneously conjuring two elements. While it may be considered an imprudent choice, one must contemplate the potential of integrating all available elements when the opportunity arises. Naruto promptly ceased his practice and took a deep breath. A line of sweat formed on his brow due to the intense concentration he had maintained for the past hour. Is there an individual capable of eluding your perception? They may have made an error for some reason, however, it is likely that they pose a significant risk. Naruto contemplated before summoning everyone into the RV to deliberate on their next course of action. Who might be observing us? Have we achieved recognition now? Harley contemplated as she looked out the side window of the RV. Pamela shook her head. I attempted to engage with the greenery in the surrounding area, yet I was unable to find anything. Should we be concerned about this? She responded while seeking guidance from Naruto. I was unable to perceive anything as well. Either the cat is deceiving us, or the individual outside possesses exceptional skills. Raven exhaled deeply. Naruto contemplates, could it be them? I am uncertain as to why they would pursue me, could it be for the same reason that Clarion did? I believe I have an idea regarding their identity, but it may not be to your liking. Naruto exhaled softly while paying close attention. The only individuals capable of evading detection with such skill are ninjas, specifically those affiliated with the League of Assassins. He stated with gravity. Those individuals? Pamela's eyes widen as she recalls hearing about them during her time as a criminal. She has shown some changes in demeanor over the past few years, however. Previously, she was quite engaged in the criminal sphere. The antagonist consistently engaged with influential individuals to secure resources aimed at advancing her objective of enhancing the environment for plant life. She was apprehended by Batman and subsequently confined to Arkham Asylum for an extended period. The facility experienced a significant reduction in criminal activity, raising questions about whether this was a deliberate strategy. She contemplated who was overseeing operations there. Her recollection was somewhat limited due to the condition she was placed in. The experience of being deprived of sunlight was quite challenging. However, within that unfortunate location, she encountered an individual named Ras El Ghul. He consistently sought opportunities to engage with the criminals who captured his interest, and Pamela was among them. The individual ultimately secured his escape with assistance, accompanied by several others. Do you believe it is them? She inquired. Naruto acknowledged with a slight frown, I believe they are pursuing me, similar to Clarion. Are they attempting to take Honeybun away from me? I will take decisive action against them. Harley clenched her jaw, firmly grasping her bat. The weapon was in a state of significant disrepair. It may be prudent to consider an upgrade. The dependable option is nearing the end of its lifespan. I will ensure it has an impact on several individuals. She contemplated. Are these individuals considered highly dangerous? Raven stated. Highly. I will take decisive action if they attempt to threaten my superior. Myra stated with a serious expression. It was not entirely uncommon, yet she typically exhibited a consistent sense of happiness. However, similar to the others, Naruto proved to be her reverse scale. Mira's creation was an unforeseen event, one that would willingly embrace danger for him without hesitation. Although he did not engage with her frequently, he recalled feeling emotional at the prospect of losing her. Naruto's harem is already substantial, and he will ultimately acknowledge that he possesses one. Myra is no longer solely composed of his essence and Pamela's association with the green. He came to understand that fact after Kurama provided an explanation of how he achieved the second stage. Plants possess energy, however, it would not have provided him with such a significant boost without a unique quality. He speculated that her connection to the green was the reason. The villainess likely remained oblivious to that fact, much like Harley was unaware of her connection to the red. Kurama clarified that the brands do not induce changes like those she is experiencing, rather, they merely enable limited access to dragon essence, which left Naruto with lingering questions about the nature of her transformation. I sincerely hope that this scenario does not lead to a world dominated by zombies. If such a situation arises, it will be imperative to address it decisively before it can gain any momentum. To achieve that, I must significantly enhance my strength. He regarded Myra with a furrowed brow, observing her as her face began to flush from the prolonged gaze. Master. Naruto acknowledged that the woman held a significant position in his heart, a sentiment that intensified following the kiss they shared. It is not the appropriate moment to consider relationships. The League of Assassins is likely preparing to launch an attack during the night. I am resilient, which suggests that I am also resistant to sharp objects. Nonetheless, the remaining individuals are not. I will proceed independently. I will, absolutely not. We will not be left behind. Harley emitted a low growl. I have not yet made any statements. Naruto was astonished. Your expression reveals everything, Raven remarked. Pamela shook her head and sighed. You struggle to conceal your emotions. Indeed, I believe that is a positive development. It will not be possible for you to deceive us. I really am not. Naruto concurred. The woman with red hair gently cupped his face, caressing it as she gazed into his eyes. We are all capable individuals. We are more than just your romantic partners. Our team is united. If they have an issue with you, then they have an issue with us. Harley frowned. I challenge anyone to attempt to interfere with you. Raven concurred with their statements. She never anticipated being in this kind of relationship, yet she remained committed to standing by Naruto's side until the very end. It is possible that their circumstances may not be as dire as they perceive, yet it will not alter her perspective. Understood, I will handle the front. Engage only when a favorable opportunity presents itself. It is likely that they will choose to act after nightfall. I have a strategy for that. Several hours after nightfall, movement in the forest caught Tikal's attention as he remained concealed in a nearby tree. They are approaching. Tikal remarked as Naruto exited the RV. He soon discerned the subtle footsteps of what appeared to be more than 10 individuals. However, that number increased threefold as the entire area was encircled by individuals clad in light black attire and equipped with weapons. A number of individuals were positioned on the ground, while others were strategically placed in the trees, meticulously observing their target's every movement as multiple red dots began to emerge on his body. Snipers. Observing them confirmed Naruto's assumption. However, if they possess the intelligence they claim, it raises the question of why they would deploy ordinary humans against him. Shortly after their arrival, a woman with a distinctive katana secured to her back stepped forward. The woman's face was obscured by a black metal mask featuring a red visor, yet he immediately recognized her by her attire. She possesses other outfits. However, no one else in the League of Shadows has been known to don the crimson red top and black pants with long black trench coat. Each step she took was silent, and her poise clearly conveyed a sense of confidence. Who wouldn't excel in the role of a top assassin? Even prior to that, she distinguished herself as someone inherently talented. What is your request, Lady Shiva? Naruto expressed his frustration with a low growl. Oh, I have a reputation. The woman stated, exhibiting no signs of surprise. She then removed the mask, revealing her exceptionally beautiful face. Why don't you come quietly then? We will ensure the safety of the women in that scenario. Thank you for the offer, but I must decline. I have tasks that require my attention, and your interruption is not conducive to my focus. Oh. I apologize for any inconvenience caused. Have I interrupted you? Have you enjoyed your experiences with various women? I was informed that Harley and Poison Ivy were involved with one man, but now it appears there are 2 additional individuals involved. You are the most undesirable type of individual. She displayed a subtle smile. At least I remain committed to my own family, Sandra. Naruto responded sharply. Almost immediately, her expression shifted, and her gaze focused intently on Naruto as she grasped the hilt of her sword. It appears that you will need to accompany us while being somewhat impaired. Sandra frowned as she discarded the mask onto the ground. Upon the moment she unsheathed her sword, Naruto sensed an unusual presence surrounding it. It is constructed from dragon claw. And not just any claw, you had the audacity to use her. I can discern from its gleam in the moonlight, Matatabi. With each word the dragon articulated, his tone increasingly conveyed a sense of anger. It is imperative that you avoid any contact with that blade under all circumstances. The claw in question is from a unique species of dragon, renowned for its ability to consume toxic substances and assimilate the poison into its own system, rendering it non-lethal to others. In your current condition, it won't be fatal, but you'll likely wish it were, Naruto remarked. What was intended to be a routine altercation escalated into a significantly more perilous situation following the dragon's warning. That blade. Could you please share the source of that item? Naruto assumed a fighting stance, a low growl escaping his lips. However, Sandra moved swiftly towards him, her body emanating a palpable sense of intent. The leading assassin may not have been the fastest, yet she was sufficiently swift to close the distance in mere seconds, her blade poised just inches from his neck. She may have stated her intention to take him back despite his missing limbs, but in truth, he desired to reclaim his life. Now! Naruto exclaimed internally, and in an instant, the RV sprang to life, catching the assassins off guard just before they were overwhelmed by a brilliant light emanating from several panels on either side of the RV in its unmasked state. The function was unusual, yet Naruto anticipated it, recalling Wizard's explanation that he designed this RV to be adaptable for nearly any scenario. There may be circumstances in which the RV is submerged. Soon after, Raven emerged from the RV, her hand enveloped in dark energy. Azarath Metrian Zinthos! She exclaimed, uprooting the trees that concealed assassins and casting them aside into the distance. Following her assault, multiple throwing stars were directed at her head. However, they were intercepted by vines that emerged from the ground, subsequently targeting the crowd of assassins to neutralize them. The conflict has now commenced. Sandra remained undeterred by the light and proceeded with her assault on Naruto, who adeptly sidestepped her attack and seized her by the face. Naruto was not necessarily more skilled than the woman. However, he clearly surpassed her in terms of strength and speed. He sought information on how she acquired the weapon rather than intending to kill her. I possess greater strength than you, Naruto asserted, taking the sword from her dominant hand and casting her aside. I possess a superior team. He noted that Myra exited the RV with great urgency, engaging in the situation with determination and readiness to confront anyone who might obstruct her master's path. The well-prepared team of assassins was taken by surprise by the unfolding events, yet they remained skilled professionals in their field. They were acutely aware of the potential for imminent danger. They mounted a resistance, even in the face of a more powerful opposition. "Excuse me, please allow me to join in on the excitement," Harley called out as she hurried out of the RV after Myra, accompanied by her pets who echoed their owner's enthusiasm. It may have been excessive to involve her in the conflict, but she remained unfazed as these individuals attempted to separate Naruto from her. A number of armed adversaries began firing at the girls, intent on eliminating them. Raven erected a barrier around them, providing protection from the gunfire, which was relatively straightforward compared to their experience in Metropolis. Nevertheless, the vines that had previously assaulted them continued to advance, coiling around their bodies with a serpentine motion and ultimately severing them in two. Eliminate all targets. Pamela frowned as she nonchalantly exited the RV. I perceive additional entities approaching. Tikal observed, detecting increased activity within the forest. It appears that the League of Assassins has arrived with additional support. The presence of individuals in black attire was remarkable, resembling a substantial assembly of approximately 100 individuals. It appeared that they were resolute in their intention to take Naruto with them that night. However, they were merely fueling the collaboration of the four girls working together as a cohesive unit. Throughout this unfolding situation, Naruto's gaze remained fixed on Sandra as she rose from the ground. She could only observe as the sword she had been given vanished before her eyes, prompting her to clench her teeth in frustration. Please return that item. She called out, rushing towards him, overlooking the events that had transpired earlier. Despite his overwhelming strength, Naruto felt a sense of excitement at the fire in the woman's eyes, though it was unfortunate that she was merely human. She could be beneficial if he could align her with his objectives, but he needed to consider alternative methods to achieve that. Sandra might have felt anger towards Naruto for taking her sword, but she was not foolish. The assassin abruptly altered course during the dash and headed straight for Harley, who found herself encircled by adversaries. Nevertheless, the situation was not as dire as it appeared, as the antagonist appeared to be thriving. You are dismissed. Harley struck decisively, delivering a powerful blow with her bat to the assassin's face, resulting in a crushed jaw and the bat breaking in half from the force of the impact. It appears that this concludes our discussion. She displayed a calculated smile as her nails began to transform into claws. I intend to ensure you experience considerable distress prior to your demise. She expressed her frustration as Bud and Lou appeared to increase in size. The antagonist was so engrossed in her own struggle that she failed to recognize an attempt to use her as a hostage. Sandra understood that she lacked the physical strength to match him, yet she remained hopeful that her speed would enable her to apprehend Harley and fulfill her objective. However, before she could approach, she found herself seized by the neck. Naruto lifted her off the ground. Did you just attempt to pursue my partner a moment ago? Typically, many men would feel hesitant about striking a woman, but Naruto was somewhat similar in this regard. Naruto delivered a punch to her abdomen, propelling her into the forest. He restrained himself, not wishing to conclude the confrontation abruptly, yet it was sufficient to compel the assassin to expel blood. I was already frustrated that you attempted to use them against me, but then you chose to confront one of them right in front of me. Are you attempting to endanger your life? Naruto frowned as he hurried towards her location. Sandra clenched her jaw to endure the pain while casting a rather intimidating gaze at Naruto. Although her expression remained composed, she had sustained several broken ribs from a single assault. The assassin sensed her instincts urging her to flee, yet escaping was unfeasible with this man present. Sandra identified multiple opportunities to engage, recognizing that her opponent lacked experience in combat. However, he compensated for this with considerable strength. Sandra vowed to herself that she would never again allow herself to feel vulnerable, yet an unfamiliar individual was managing her with an unsettling dominance. She began to experience doubts regarding her decision to accept this mission to capture him, as there was a lack of precise information about his strength. Nonetheless, she will persist in her efforts even when the situation appears futile. Sandra exhaled deeply before sprinting towards Naruto, her hands poised to deliver a decisive blow to his vitals. Regrettably, each of her aggressive attempts was dismissed with ease, as if they were mere nuisances. His eyes emitted a menacing glow as he relentlessly penetrated her defenses time and again, yet she remained silent, not uttering a single cry. Naruto may have exercised restraint, yet it was sufficient to inflict internal damage. Sandra possessed a remarkable array of skills, one of which enabled her to manage her nerves effectively, essentially suppressing her pain signals. She was acutely aware that she was being regarded with disdain by this imposing individual. A leading martial artist globally was encountering challenges with an individual of his caliber. The assassin found herself unable to evade capture as each opportunity was swiftly thwarted by Naruto's formidable presence. Ultimately, when her strength waned, she was effortlessly restrained against a nearby tree with a single hand. Is today the day I die? Sandra contemplated as she clenched her teeth tightly, expelling the blood that had pooled in her mouth. One might attribute the creation of the cold-blooded killer known as Lady Shiva to David Kane. However, she remains a character who does not warrant pity. Given the chance, she would have eliminated each one of them without a second thought. She consistently exhibited that behavior, engaging in activities that captured her interest. To achieve freedom, Sandra might not have to endure such difficulties if her previous circumstances were comparable. Their discovery was facilitated by an individual in an unusual cloak, who provided information prior to vanishing without a trace. She had her suspicions, but the information ultimately proved accurate, which delighted her as she had grown weary of pursuing him. Is that the reason the man smiled just before his departure? I recognized that there was an issue, which is why I sought additional assistance. However, this, Sandra observed as her colleagues were systematically defeated one after another. A young woman appeared to exert influence over her surroundings, establishing protective barriers for her allies during challenging situations. The team had brought flamethrowers to confront Poison Ivy. However, they were swiftly neutralized by another woman who possessed the strength to lift a full-grown man with ease. The woman they regarded with the utmost caution navigated the battlefield with unparalleled skill, as vines emerged from all directions to eliminate her adversaries, either by crushing them or forcefully slamming them against the ground. Ultimately, the individual they anticipated would pose the least challenge was tearing through flesh with her sharpened claws, a capability she should not have had. Two large hyenas were observed moving through the area, resulting in fatalities wherever they traveled, accompanied by what appeared to be a saber tooth. Hold on, that cat. What is the reason for its assistance to them? It cannot be this distant from him. Sandra contemplated. Are you the ruler of disorder? She inquired, her breath labored, yet a resolute expression remained in her eyes. Initially, Naruto was quite angry with the woman. However, even after she was defeated and had no means of escape, she maintained the same expression. Having Pamela and Harley as partners is one aspect, but being involved with the one and only Lady Shiva is entirely different. He must be out of his mind. Naruto resisted the impulse to assert dominance over her, recognizing that such actions were inappropriate in this context. His dragon instincts are increasingly presenting challenges, making it more difficult to manage them. Naruto had the opportunity to sell the jewelry he owned some time ago. However, he believed that doing so could lead to dire consequences for his well-being. The key word was might. I am now regarded as his adversary. I acquired his cat from him. He smiled, prompting Sandra to lift an eyebrow in response. Why is he regarding me as if I am some sort of prize? Sandra experienced a shiver along her spine. While he had personal aspirations, the well-being of his daughters took precedence. Naruto retrieved some rope from his ring to secure Sandra's arms and legs, as he remained cautious despite her inability to move. He then mentally summoned Tikal to keep an eye on her after he left her by the side of the RV. Should she make a move, you are to proceed with the attack. He issued a directive. Yes, master. Tikal responded after Naruto gently rubbed his head. It was distinctly different when his former master showed him affection, primarily valuing him as a connection to the physical realm. Despite the circumstances, there are still no treats available. Tikal meowed as it reverted to its original size before leaping onto Sandra's head and engaging with her hair, much to her annoyance. Pamela was the first individual he encountered, diligently burying the deceased and tidying the surroundings while offering assistance to Myra. Naruto. Pamela was delighted to see him and shared a deep kiss, as though they had been apart for an extended period. I informed you that we are capable individuals. She smiled, revealing her bright teeth as her hands wrapped around his waist. What is the status of the others? Naruto inquired. Harley is accompanying Raven, apprehending anyone attempting to flee. It appears that following the defeat of their leader, several individuals opted to surrender. She provided a response. I will assist. I am fatigued by this ongoing struggle. Naruto stated before vanishing into the chaos, aligning himself with Myra in combat, swiftly neutralizing any adversaries that approached his vicinity. There were a few rare instances when the two engaged the same adversary, and it brought a sense of satisfaction to Myra to be able to fight alongside him. Anyone caught between them faced a fatal outcome due to their immense strength, instilling fear even in the most hardened members of the League of Shadows. This location will not allow for any departures this evening. Amidst the ongoing conflict, an individual clad in a hooded green cloak observed the events unfold with a smile on his face. He was positioned in an area that would not typically attract attention, several hundred feet above the ground. The outcome is not what I anticipated, but it will suffice for now. You will soon locate me, and then the actual presentation will commence. Should one have the opportunity to hear his laughter, they might find it strikingly familiar. This body continues to present challenges. The individual expressed discomfort. I will ensure Themyscira is brought to its knees, along with the princess responsible for my demise. She will face the consequences of her actions. After several hours, the battle concluded, and the group began to reconvene at the RV while Pamela proceeded to handle the aftermath. A few survived due to Raven, as she had not been trained to be a killer. However, many of them expressed a desire for death given their circumstances. Several individuals appeared to be shivering, as though they had been placed in a frigid tundra environment. Please inform me of the source of this, Naruto inquired, presenting the katana that Sandra had previously held. I would prefer that you end my life. Sandra expressed her displeasure. That can be arranged. Harley exclaimed as her nails transformed into claws once more. Her hands were stained with fresh blood from the numerous bodies she had cut through, and her clothing bore the same grim evidence. Naruto raised his hand, signaling the villainess to remain calm, though he emitted a menacing growl beforehand. I am not inclined to share any information. You would be better off eliminating me. Oh. Is that correct? Naruto smiled as he observed the woman. He had already resolved to assert his claim over her, yet it was clear that inflicting pain or employing threats would not elicit a response from her. What would be the implications if he took an alternative approach? However, if he were to proceed in this manner from the outset, it would reflect poorly on him in the eyes of the girls. While they might offer their forgiveness, he would struggle to forgive himself. "I believe we have concluded our discussion," Naruto acknowledged with a nod. "Could you please clarify? Are we? However, we have not yet taken any action." Harley was taken aback. "What are your intentions regarding her?" Pamela inquired as she rested a hand on his shoulder. "I desire her," he responded internally as he turned to kiss the villainess, eliciting a groan from her lips. "Are you being serious? A Naruto as an assassin?" She responded while reciprocating the kiss. Pamela was fully aware of her partner's excessive greed, yet her affection for him remained unwavering. However, she contemplated whether he might become overwhelmed and overlook her. "I will ensure that you always remember me." She abruptly withdrew from his lips, opening the RV while directing the plants within to grow and seize the still-bound Sandra. "Are you suggesting that you will harm me?" Sandra inquired as the vines constricted around her form. "No, I am not. I would like to present something to you." Pamela smiled as Sandra was drawn inside by the vines. "Please do not keep me waiting for an extended period of time, dear husband," she internally responded after casting him one final glance before vanishing into the vehicle. Her intense gaze captivated Naruto, making it clear what his first wife intended to reveal to Sandra. The three girls were aware of Naruto's attraction, and candidly, they desired his attention to be focused on them. "Your day follows Pamela's," Naruto stated firmly, maintaining eye contact with the blushing Raven as she bit her bottom lip. It was becoming increasingly difficult to resist the desires her body felt for this man, and she might soon decide to embrace those feelings without restraint. The half-demon expressed that she was not prepared to advance to that stage of the relationship, and now she feels a sense of regret. "Naruto." Her violet eyes appeared to gleam as she pressed her lips against his warm ones. She then embraced him, holding him closely as they shared an extended, intense kiss. Raven experienced a shiver as she sensed Naruto's hands move to her hips, prompting her to withdraw. "I look forward to that day," she spoke softly before vanishing. The half-demon would need to engage in an extended meditation session this evening. Soon after she departed, Harley swiftly approached and kissed his lips, intertwining her tongue with his. In contrast to Raven, she felt no hesitation in expressing her desire, particularly after observing the condition of Naruto's pants. The antagonist observed the silhouette of his anatomy as it sought an escape, and her hand was poised to assist. Naruto unexpectedly struck Harley, causing her to halt as a surprised sound escaped her lips. Harley retracted her lips, creating a connection of saliva from Naruto's tongue. "Dear," she sighed, her face turning a deep shade of red as she moistened her lips with a deliberate gesture. Naruto looked down at the villainess with his glowing red eyes. "You're still dirty. Did you attempt to make physical contact with me?" He frowned, delivering a firmer slap to her backside. Harley expressed herself once more, relishing the transformation of discomfort into enjoyment, resulting in a slight dampness in her undergarments. "I apologize for any inconvenience." Naruto made a bold move, eliciting a strong reaction as he leaned in to whisper something that ignited her desire to be closer to him. She promptly enters the RV to take a shower, ensuring she cleans every inch of her body. "Master," Myra quietly murmured, lowering her head slightly as she walked past him toward the RV. However, upon reaching the first step, she was halted by a firm hand. She recognized the owner immediately and swiftly turned to see him gazing up at her with those captivating red eyes she holds in high regard. Myra then experienced a soft and warm sensation against her lips, and she immediately desired more of it. Her eyes remained open, as she found it hard to comprehend that her master was initiating a kiss. She sensed something within her begin to drift away as Naruto intensified the kiss. Following that, her recollections were limited to the moment when her master asserted his ownership over her. She had always held the conviction that she belonged to him, but hearing him articulate it was an entirely different experience. Upon concluding his interaction with the girls, Naruto returned to the master bedroom, only to discover that the entrance was obstructed by vines. The vines would subsequently shift, creating sufficient space for his entry. Notice a caution regarding lemons has been issued. You have been duly informed. Upon entering, he observed Pamela reclining on the bed, her striking green eyes fixed on him. Every aspect of her stunning physique was revealed to him and to the restrained Sandra, who was confined in the corner by the villainous influence. You individuals are truly reprehensible. Please, put an end to this situation. Sandra exclaimed, fully aware of the intentions of the two in this location. She engaged in sexual relations only once, which resulted in the conception of her daughter Cassandra, who is now a teenager. Pamela placed a finger over her lips as vines enveloped Sandra's mouth. Shortly thereafter, the antagonist rose from the bed and approached Naruto, delivering a passionate kiss on his lips while instructing her plants to securely close and lock the door behind him. The two would then engage in a brief intimate moment while Pamela assists Naruto in removing his clothing until he was completely unclothed. Sandra was taken aback as she observed the man's impressive anatomy, and despite the time that had passed, she could distinctly recognize that it surpassed David's size. Pamela observed Sandra's astonished expression from the corner of her eye, a subtle smirk forming on her lips. Do you recognize the extent of his character? I was his first. You will never experience what I experienced. Unexpectedly, Naruto grasped her soft form, eliciting a groan as she moved even closer to him. Her transition into his life was entirely coincidental, yet if given the opportunity to revisit the past, she would undoubtedly choose the same path once more. She appreciated the comfort of his body warmth and the sense of safety it provided her. Her partner exhibited unusual behavior and a notable desire for attention from numerous attractive women, yet her primary concern was whether he had space in his heart for her. Pamela's response was provided as she was pushed back onto the bed, compelling her to meet his gaze as he positioned himself above her. She noticed that his red eyes were solely directed at her, even with another attractive woman present in the room. He had the option to disregard her entirely and proceed directly to the assassin if he chose to do so. She might have experienced pain, but in time, she would have extended her forgiveness to him. I am fully at your service. Pamela felt a warmth rise to her cheeks as she embraced him, gently pressing her lips against his in a tender kiss. I understand, he whispered. For the next hour, Sandra was compelled to endure the sounds of two individuals engaging in an intimate encounter, seemingly driven by an intense desire for one another. The assassin had long since closed her eyes, yet it proved challenging to ignore the sounds that steadily grew more pronounced. Sandra did not recall expressing herself in that manner during her intimate encounter with Cain, and he certainly did not have a prolonged duration. On several occasions, her eyes would open, revealing something that defied human capability. She observed the man's entire length vanish within the redhead's mouth without any signs of discomfort, maintaining this position for over 5 minutes effortlessly. Isn't it necessary for her to breathe air? Soon, the men would emit a loud groan as the redhead began to consume something as if it were the most exquisite delicacy in existence. That amount was just crazy, and what's even crazier is that she didn't let a single drop of it slip away. So, what was it all about, really? Pamela demonstrated after gently pulling her mouth away from Naruto, playfully swirling the thick white substance around in her mouth for her to see before swallowing it with obvious enjoyment. Sandra couldn't quite put her finger on it, but there was this little twinge of envy nagging at her. It didn't help that the guy didn't even look her way, which just made things feel even more frustrating. What if I just told him what he wanted? Do you think he would give me that as well? Absolutely not. Hey, don't worry about that stuff. She frowned, but then she realized she was wet between her legs. Sandra had convinced herself it was just sweat, but deep down, she knew the truth and felt a wave of self-loathing wash over her. Sandra was doing her best to calm down and regain her strength, but then a scream would pierce the air, snapping her eyes wide open. Pamela was about to hit another peak as she felt the rhythm from behind on the bed. She was completely lost in her thoughts, and the only thing driving her forward was the desire to make her mate happy, but then he turned out to be too overpowering. His intense movements brought her to a peak for the 15th time, leaving her man's lower half and the bed covered with her essence. Eventually, her body just gave out, and she happily fainted. Whenever Naruto gets intimate with Pamela, he realizes that he feels a surprising sense of clarity, almost like her body has this calming vibe. That's why he tends to be gentler with her compared to Harley. Naruto took a deep breath, pulled away from the woman, and leaned down to give her a kiss on the cheek. Just a moment later, he would softly lift her up after wrapping her in the blanket. Once Pamela passed out, the vines that were covering the room began to shrink back to their normal size, freeing Sandra from her restraints. But her hands and feet were still bound by a rope. Hey, don't move, Naruto said in a low growl. It was strange how she acted, especially since she had the strength to break free from the rope. Once Pamela was all set, he stepped out of the room and laid her down on one of the beds close to the lounge, brushing off the glances from Harley and Myra. Han, hey, don't forget what I mentioned, Harley. Naruto cut in, making her pout as she flopped back down on the bed. Sandra quietly observed Naruto as he walked back to the bedroom, shutting the door softly behind him. She had the chance to escape the moment it was opened, but she chose not to because she was aware he would catch her. That's what she wanted to think. So, can you help me out by answering my questions? He smiled as he walked toward her, and it was clear he had some not-so-nice plans in mind. She almost let it all spill out, but she managed to hold herself back with whatever willpower she had left. You know, you could have totally escaped. He let out a little laugh. Sandra frowned and said, we both know I wouldn't be able to get past you. Come on, we both know that if you truly wanted to, you would have gone for it no matter what. But you just stayed totally still, you really heard me out, what's the reason for that? Naruto gently brushed the back of his hand against her cheek as he asked. Did you know that aside from being strong, I've got a pretty good nose too? He leaned in and whispered softly in her ear. When she heard him say that, the woman couldn't help but squeeze her thighs together, gritting her teeth in frustration. The assassin honed her skills to become a killer, a martial artist capable of surpassing even the strongest of men. But, she never really thought about training to fight against pleasure. It just wasn't something that crossed her mind. If I tell you everything, will you let me go? What are your thoughts? Sandra Wusan. Are you sure you want me to let you go? He leaned in closer, whispering softly into her ear while playfully nibbling on it, making her shiver with delight. Sandra always promised herself that she'd never lose again, and that's why she pushed herself through grueling training to make her body stronger than what most people could ever achieve. Hey Sandra, do you want me to let you go? Why are you calling my name like that? Why do you need to hear my answer? Could you just take me and get it over with? Hey Sandra, can you answer me? Hold on. Wait. Sandra bit her bottom lip, her thoughts racing as she felt his warm, strong hand glide along her thighs. Hey, Sandra. All right. I really don't want to be let go. She let out a cry. That was the day Lady Shiva not only lost her strength but also her grip on her mind. After hearing those words, Naruto grinned and began planting kisses along her neck while he gently tugged at her clothing, revealing her torso. It was clear that Sandra was beautiful, and she definitely knew how to use that to her advantage from time to time. But, she had only ever been touched by Kane, and it was never quite like how Naruto was touching her. She had a few scars scattered across her body, but that didn't put him off at all. Sandra's body was toned like Harley's, but you could really see that all her muscles were trained to maximize their potential. She had some pretty impressive breasts, a little on the bigger side but just the right size for Naruto's hands. He couldn't help but squeeze them, enjoying how firm they felt. Sandra really tried to hold back her moans, but every time someone touched her, it sent a little jolt of pleasure through her. She bit down on her lower lip as Naruto began to play with her nipples, pinching them a little while he slipped himself between her thighs. Hey, so where did you pick up that weapon? He asked as he nestled his face into her neck, playfully teasing it with his tongue. Hey, you're asking that, now. She responded as he began to use her thighs for his pleasure, and it somehow turned her on. He was so close to her entrance, but he was using a part that wasn't really meant for that. Was he, like, teasing her? Hey Sandra, got a weapon? He growled close to her ear and then playfully nibbled on it, making her shudder once more. The top assassin realized she had a weakness in her ears, something she had been completely unaware of until this moment. Hey, Sandra. Ras Al Ghul handed it over to me, after he went on an expedition. I'm in Turkey, Sandra let out a groan that came out surprisingly cute, even though her voice was a bit on the deeper side. She couldn't believe that sound had actually come out of her mouth. Naruto thought it was funny and wanted to hear it again, playfully teasing her while giving her soft yet firm as a squeeze. David never spent time on foreplay, but if he did, he'd probably have this Asian beauty melting in his arms. They sat in silence for several minutes, and the tension was so thick that the assassin felt a tremor run through her entire body. The League of Assassins' top killer reached an orgasm just from foreplay. Not long after, Naruto let go of Sandra and settled down on the bed. Sandra's clothes were in complete disarray, all torn up and hanging off her body, while her hands and legs were still bound by rope. It was the ideal moment to break free. She could see the door and felt strong enough to make a dash for it. Sandra finally got her arms and legs free from the ropes and headed over to the door. "Hey Sandra, come here." Just as her hands were about to touch the door, Naruto called her name with such warmth. She was a killer who thrived on fighting, leaving no room for any sort of love. But somehow, her heart was racing for a different reason than just keeping her alive, and instead of opening the door, she decided to lock it. Sandra then quickly took off the rest of her clothes, revealing her body to him. After feeling his love, she just craved more of it. Do you think he was on some kind of drug? No. So, why did it feel so amazing when he touched me? She then shifted, climbing on top of him and enjoying the warmth radiating from his strong body. She eagerly leaped into the jaws of a beast. Naruto. Sandra softly said his name while his arms encircled her waist, marking a turning point in her life. She then felt his lips on hers, kissing them a bit awkwardly at first until he took charge. What am I doing? What am I doing? Her conscience was trying to guide her, but her body just wouldn't listen, getting all heated up as Naruto's hands roamed over her, making her feel like putty. The foreplay was incredible, and she quickly found herself trembling again. But her body craved more, pressing against her abdomen and radiating a heat that felt distinctly different from the rest of him. She was definitely feeling it, shifting her body a little closer without even realizing it. Naruto could tell exactly what she was after, and he was ready to deliver as he positioned himself to enter her eager warmth. Ah! Sandra let out a surprised moan as she felt herself being stretched to accommodate him. She had the ability to escape the pain, but she chose to embrace it as every inch slid into her. Sandra realized that Naruto was definitely bigger than David, and that thought was confirmed as she felt him deep inside her, making her body shudder once more. I just got back from insertion, am I really that weak? She was in disbelief, but before she could fully process it, Naruto began to thrust into her, holding her as firmly. Sandra had been pretty quiet all night, but now she was moaning loudly, making a face that definitely wouldn't help her reputation as a top member of the League of Assassins. Lemon End. Before long, morning came, and Sandra found herself waking up in a bed that felt a bit strange to her. At first, she thought she had been kidnapped, but then she realized she was totally naked and could hear someone breathing right next to her. She discovered a guy peacefully dozing off, completely carefree, with his arms wrapped around her waist. After catching a glimpse of his handsome face, Sandra began to recall the events of the previous night, and she couldn't help but blush, especially when she sensed something leaking out of her. She had lost to this man, but oddly enough, she didn't feel as bad as she expected. In fact, she felt a sense of freedom, which was a bit strange given her situation. Soon after, the target, Naruto woke up from his nap and gazed at her with those stunning red eyes that she could get lost in forever. Hey there, Lady Shiva. Good morning. He gave a smile. Sandra realized he was just teasing her, but instead of getting upset, she flashed a beautiful smile. Hey there, good morning. She leaned in softly, capturing his lips with hers, showing just how much she loved him. Unlike Harley and Pamela, she didn't have a brand on her, but there was a really good reason for that. Naruto had already picked his third wife, and it just so happened to be the woman who was meditating on the roof of the RV. He might have had his eye on Kara before Raven, but he admits he wasn't really thinking straight at that time. Maybe if he ran into the Kryptonian again, those feelings would come back, but honestly, he wasn't too worried about it since he had already made his decision. So, he really had to step up his game and fast, because Trigon definitely wasn't going to just sit around waiting for him to get strong enough to take him on. But he also knew he wouldn't be in this fight by himself. A few days went by, and Wizard had already stopped by to pick up the cash for the new project Naruto wanted to get started on. Right after getting the cash, Wizard mentioned that it wouldn't cover what he wanted, but Naruto promised to find more money and encouraged him to just get started. Pamela had him all to herself that day, and it was one of the happiest days had ever experienced in the DC universe. They took a walk deeper into the forest, had a picnic, and talked like nothing else mattered. It was just perfect. Listening to her was a breeze, especially with that signature smile lighting up her beautiful face. She chatted about her latest interests, and they even tossed around some names for their unborn child. So, naturally, things got a bit intense, and they found themselves getting a little carried away on the forest floor. I mean, if anyone happened to stroll by, they would definitely see and hear a woman calling out for her lover. But they didn't keep it going for too long since the rest of the night was all about chatting and cuddling up for some warmth. If we have a girl, I'd love to name her Olivia Uzumaki. And, if it's a boy, then Menma Uzumaki. She chimed in. Oh come on seriously. Naruto felt a bit uncomfortable. What's up with Menma? I really like it a lot. She smirked as she pushed him down on his back and then climbed on top of him, making the blanket that covered her slip off. Her bare skin was then met by the chilly air and the moonlight, which shone down like a spotlight, showcasing her beauty. I really love you, Naruto Uzumaki, and that's never going to change. Pamela laughed, making Naruto turn red for the first time ever. The next day was all about hanging out with Raven, and it was up to Naruto to figure out their plans. He suggested a movie, and the half-demon quickly agreed because she always wanted to experience more normal things in her life. Raven looked stunning in her unique clothing and cloak, but when she switched to casual clothes, Naruto couldn't help but curse. She looked absolutely stunning in those black high-rise jeans and that purple shoulder-cut top. Pamela had picked up a bunch of clothes for herself that she never got around to wearing, and Naruto found himself silently thanking his first wife. Raven was blushing like crazy because Naruto just couldn't take his eyes off her. But eventually, she couldn't take it anymore and snapped her fingers to snap him out of his daze. The movie they picked was this horror flick featuring a creepy clown, but Raven totally missed most of it because she was in a daze, just staring at Naruto and taking in every little detail of his face. Before long, Naruto caught Raven's gaze, a smile spreading across his face as he took her hand. In that moment, Raven completely tuned out the screams of the audience. Will you be my forever? Naruto asked, and right away, the half-demon burst into tears, not from sadness, but from sheer joy. She already knew how he felt about her, but hearing it again was just spectacular. Sure. She nodded as he brought her hand closer to his lips. Naruto figured out that he didn't have to have sex to show a woman she was his mate, and that's just what he went ahead and did. He bit down on her hand while spreading his essence, and before long, a brand appeared on Raven's hand after a quick flash of golden light. The folks in the theater thought it was part of the movie, and they're likely to rave about it in their reviews, even though no one else had quite the same experience. Raven couldn't help but gasp when the brand appeared, and with her keen eyes, she instantly recognized what it signified. The half-demon was now tied to him, but she wasn't scared at all. Instead, she leaned in and kissed his lips passionately. If he had asked to take her right now, she would have said yes, but he promised he wouldn't until her father was defeated. The next day, Naruto got a call from an unknown number, and it turned out to be Mark. He mentioned that the crazy old lady would be chatting with him about what he needs. So, Naruto decided to look this lady up online, and it turns out she's a well-known designer who retired a few years ago and is now living the good life in Metropolis. Honestly, Naruto had totally forgotten about the promise, but he really wanted to be the kind of guy who always keeps his word, so he decided to meet them in the third week of this month. Mark really wanted him to come right away, but Naruto was set on his decision, which made the agent go along with it. So, with all that said and done, Naruto mumbled to himself after he hung up the phone. Hey Myra, come on. We need to train before, absolutely, master. Myra leaped up before Naruto could wrap up his sentence and pulled him out of the RV. Raven figured she could tap into the dragon essence of the brand to boost her magic. So, she cast a spell to set up a nearly permanent barrier around the area, keeping anyone from getting in. It wasn't huge, but it wouldn't be long before folks started to realize that there was an invisible wall stopping them from venturing further into the forest. But for now, Naruto was going to let loose and have some fun during training. But during the fight, Sandra began to voice her concerns, saying their brawling was just a series of punches that would be lethal to an average person. No matter how tough you think you are. I won't let my husband fight like that. She cleared her throat a bit awkwardly, wishing no one noticed what she was about to say. It was pretty cool getting lessons from the famous Lady Shiva. Naruto skipped the basics to boost his speed, strength, and stamina, diving right into learning techniques instead. He thought picking up the techniques would be a breeze since all he had to do was follow Sandra's instructions, but that was far from the reality. Naruto told him he shouldn't be learning human fighting techniques, but he just brushed it off and kept on practicing anyway. It was tough for him to shake off those habits of relying on his impressive physical stats since that's what he was used to, and being part dragon didn't make it any easier. Sandra's first lesson for him was all about posture and forms. She showed him how to apply his weight to control his body in ways he never imagined he could. After several hours, Naruto was still at it, practicing his forms, and his body was drenched in sweat. He had taken off his shirt, and all the girls nearby were enjoying the view of his tanned, chiseled body. "Hunib, shoo, you're going to distract him." Sandra cut in while Harley was talking. The blonde was really struggling to hold back her urge to leap onto her guy because his manly scent was just too tempting. Recently, her sense of smell had really kicked up a notch, and the scent of Naruto was totally driving her crazy. "Why don't you just keep quiet, you old hag? I can chat with my honey bun whenever I feel like it. He loves me way more than he loves you." Harley yelled, tugging at the collar of her t-shirt to reveal the brand on her chest. "You haven't even been claimed by him." Sandra didn't seem angry at all about Harley's outburst. You could tell she was feeling a bit sexually frustrated, and even with her calm expression, there was a hint of wetness between her legs. "Hey there, Harley." Naruto let out a deep breath as he paused his practice of the forms. "What's up?" She rushed over to him, wrapping her arms around his neck with a cheerful chirp. "Can you do me a favor?" "Absolutely. I'm here for you, no matter what. Could you please keep it down?" Harley stared at him, clearly taken aback. "Huh? I really need to focus at the moment." "Sandra's right, and it seems like you're being a bit rude." "Hey, do you remember what I told you last night? Are you asking me to take that away?" he asked. Harley began to panic, shaking her head wildly while her grip on his neck tightened. "Please no. I'm going to be just fine. I swear. I always knew I could rely on you." Naruto smiled and leaned in for a quick kiss with the villainess, who enjoyed the moment, a faint blush creeping onto her cheeks. "Hey there, alright, now it's time for you to practice on your own. I need you to be stronger," he said, softly running his fingers through her hair. After that, Harley quickly pulled away from him and sprinted a little deeper into the forest, her pets right on her heels. Soon, Pamela strolled over to him and began wiping his forehead with a cool, damp towel. "So, what did you promise her?" She was kind of curious about the subject. Naruto let out a sigh, relishing the cool sensation. "I guess that'll just be our little secret," he thought. Pamela rolled her eyes, but she totally respected the decision while she kept wiping his now smiling face. "Huh?" She turned a bit red and looked away from him in a really adorable way. "I really feel like I'm super lucky." "So, it took a woman for you to feel that way. It's pretty amazing that this incredible one picked you to be his successor, right?" Kurama grumbled. "So, are we having a chat now? Hey, I've noticed you haven't said much these last few days. What's going on with that?" Naruto was curious. "I've taken a moment to gather my thoughts because I'm really getting tired of watching you struggle with learning the ways of the dragon." "That was really tiring," Kurama mentioned. "Why you? One day, I'm totally going to kick your butt." "Ha! A good laugh indeed. I would welcome the sight of your attempt. It would be a sight to behold." Kurama offered an explanation for his silence, yet it was a falsehood, for he chose not to reveal to Naruto the real cause of his absence. "I only wish you have the strength to endure by that time." Kurama reflected quietly to himself. The hour was nearing 4 p.m., and Naruto sensed it was the right moment to pause, for today belonged to Myra. The dragon guard remained silent, her resolve unbroken, willing to endure the training for his benefit. Yet, he found himself unable to allow the situation to persist unchanged. He had to bear the weight of responsibility for her. Once he had finished his shower, Sandra came to him. "Your first day of training unfolded with promise, yet the outcomes fell short of my expectations." She let out a breath, heavy with unspoken thoughts. "You came just to repeat what I already understand." Sandra shook her head. "No," she said. "I came to tell you that I have only a week before I must leave to settle some things. I can impart only a measure of knowledge before I must take my leave." "So?" Naruto sensed it in her gaze, a weight of unspoken thoughts lingering between them. "The brand that Harley mentioned, what is it?" Sandra kept her feelings hidden, yet a twinge of jealousy stirred within her for the brand she longed to possess. A sentiment that seemed out of place for her years, yet it lingered, undeniable and raw. It's a kind of sorcery that fortifies them, yet it carries a bitter consequence, Naruto replied with a steady demeanor. Sandra lifted an eyebrow, sighed, effect. Naruto nodded, you will always belong to me, and if I should fall, those marked will fall with me. Would you still desire it, knowing that? Naruto looked deep into her brown eyes, searching for any trace of doubt. Sandra met his gaze, steady and unwavering, as she wrestled with her thoughts and came to the undeniable truth she was in love with him. She felt no concern for his many women if he possessed the strength and ability to attract them, then it was entirely acceptable. Yet, they were all quite young, and she had already seen 32 years, though her appearance belied that passage of time. Would he accept her presence? Heh! Naruto let out a hearty laugh. What is it that brings laughter? Sandra's brow furrowed. Did you think I was offering you a choice? He smiled, pulling her close with a hand at her waist. When I see something I desire, I claim it, and I desire all of you. The assassin's face brightened, a flush creeping in as she felt the rapid thump of her heart after those words echoed in her mind. Was the intimacy so profound that it could soften her heart at the sound of words that would typically ignite her fury? Being touched by him was like sitting before a fire, savoring the warmth that enveloped her. From the depth of his gaze, Sandra understood that he would pursue her relentlessly, for who would allow something that was theirs to slip away from view? Yes, she was his now, and she'd take countless lives just to earn his gaze. You're all right, with a woman of my years? She inquired, and in response, he pressed his lips to hers with a fervor that set her heart racing. She craved more, and so she kissed back with equal fervor, transforming the kiss into a fervent embrace that left her gasping for air. In a moment, Naruto withdrew, leaving Sandra to catch her breath, her mind swirling in a haze. He leaned in gradually, his face finding her shoulder, pulling at her shirt to reveal her skin before he bit down. Sandra let out a soft grunt as a peculiar warmth coursed through her, reminiscent of him, easing her tension and inviting her to surrender to the moment. When he took out his teeth, she would catch a glimpse of a mark, just as she had seen before, lingering at the edge of her vision, and it brought a smile to her face. Afterward, she yearned to share his bed, but fate had other plans, and she was denied. I will gather all the knowledge I can in that week, and mark my words, I will seek you out if you linger too long, Naruto murmured with quiet intensity into her ear. Why yes. Sandra replied, her voice barely above a whisper, a tremor in her words. Why do my ears betray me so? Once he donned his clothes, Naruto bid farewell to all, only to be pulled along by the eager Myra. The girls were all pleased to be in his company, yet Myra stood apart. Perhaps it was her innocence, her fresh perspective on life, but her lively spirit brought a lightness to his heart. Master, I've been searching the internet and I believe I want to visit this arcade. Myra called out, her finger jabbing at the image on her phone. Naruto believed it was necessary at times, so he acquired phones for Myra and Raven after the film with the half-demon. Myra devoted the night to her studies, and fortune favored her. She grasped the lessons with a speed that outpaced him as Sandra guided them both. She mastered the use of one and nearly all the cell phone functions in a single night. Why an arcade? He asked. I noticed you took pleasure in them, much like Raven, so I figured it would be just right. Is it not good? Myra replied, her bright smile fading into a shadow of discontent. She had a deep desire to satisfy him. No. It is just right. Naruto smiled, his hand brushing through her hair, a gesture she relished. It struck those nearby as odd, for Myra stood taller than him, yet in that moment, it felt perfectly natural. The journey to the arcade stretched close to an hour, yet it weighed little on their minds. Myra often found herself inquiring of Naruto about various matters she had stumbled upon online, much of it revolving around maids. She had become intrigued by them ever since that man. Mark mentioned it, and she pondered his thoughts on the matter. The woman admired the dresses they wore, yet each maid she observed lacked her body type. She claimed she would hold dear the bracelet Naruto had given her, yet it has been lost since she cast herself into the searing depths of the Star Labs. Was she simply destined to possess nothing? Maids, is it? It would be good to have one, I suppose. They would be quite useful. Why? He inquired. There is no reason. Myra smiled brightly. What? The arcade buzzed with life, filled with the laughter and shouts of children and adults, each absorbed in their own world, whether it be the simple joy of Pac-Man or the immersive thrill of virtual reality. And then it caught his gaze at the edge of his vision. It was a machine, simple yet engaging, with 2 plastic guns and a pedal on the ground, ready for action. Time is of the essence. The game stirred memories of his youth, when he watched other children play with their families while he stood alone, a weight of sadness settling in his heart. Master. Myra observed his silence, a tear tracing a path down his cheek. What? My apologies for that. Naruto brushed the sweat from his brow with the edge of his shirt sleeve. Let's go have a drink. In an instant, Myra enveloped him in a fierce embrace, her grip powerful enough to break a man's spine, as she tenderly ran her fingers through his hair. Myra, what is it that you are doing? I'm offering you solace. Text I observed it frequently in the romance films Pamela shared with me. She replied, her grip on him firm, guiding his head to rest against her ample chest. I'm alright, you may release it now. Naruto let out a heavy breath. Myra smiled, did it work? The sight of this scene stirred a deep envy among those gathered in the arcade. Most of them were alone, and it was difficult to witness 2 striking individuals exchanging flirtations in the open. Greetings. Keep the affection to a minimum and focus on the games, or find a private space if that's what you intend to do. A man cried out, his voice thick with revulsion. Mira's face twisted into a scowl as she fixed her gaze on the men engrossed in Street Fighter. Are you telling my master what to do? The men sensed a lurking danger, and with a swift movement, he abandoned the match and fled the scene. Naruto chuckled softly as he drew back from Myra. The night wore on with games, each one a lesson from Naruto to Myra. Yet, amidst the laughter and the flashing lights, it was a simple joy to be at the arcade together. Myra wore a smile that lit up the room, and her spirit awakened a youthful joy within him. Regrettably, every journey reaches its conclusion, and at last, they chose to depart from the scene. Yet, rather than making his way to the campgrounds, Naruto found himself drawn to a nearby store, one that held a sense of familiarity for the Dragon Guard. So, we're not going back. Myra felt a stirring of curiosity within her. We shall stay here for a while. I'll return shortly. He replied and then vanished into the store. As Myra lingered, 3 inebriated men approached to engage her in conversation. It was not often that one encountered a striking figure, alone and captivating, and they pondered the possibility of success. Yet, she regarded them as if they were nothing, dismissing every trivial remark they made. She likely has a man. One of them let loose a spit. Whoever the man she is with likely leaves much to be desired. She ought to be with a man like me. Another spoke. I beg your pardon, what was it you said? Mira's brow furrowed as she drew near the men, whom she loomed over with an air of quiet authority. The one who spoke of Naruto was lifted from the earth by the collar of his shirt. Hello there. Release me. The men began to feel the grip of panic as he struggled to free himself, yet he remained firmly in place. Release him, you wretched woman. One of them yelled, trying to land a punch to release his friend and the other men, but their efforts were futile, as if they were striking a solid wall. Do not offend my lord. Text I'll give you a moment to make amends, or I'll end this swiftly. She let out a fierce cry, her blue eyes gleaming with an intense fire. The other 2 then drifted away, leaving their companion to face his destiny alone. I apologize. He felt the warmth of shame creep over him, a bitter reminder of his frailty, as tears traced paths down his cheeks. Myra. Master. Her whole demeanor shifted at the sound of his voice, and she would have discarded the men like refuse before rushing to his side. The men likely won't recall the events, lost in the haze of their intoxication. What was your purpose in going to the store? She inquired. This. He placed the bracelet around her right wrist with a quiet grace. Myra gazed at it, her heart pounding, for it was the very one she had lost. How? These shops exist in every corner of the globe, often peddling the same wares, so I decided to take a chance and see if they had one. He smiled, a brief flash of warmth in the cool air. Master. She pressed her teeth into her lower lip, and tears began to trace their path down her cheeks. She had never shed a tear, not even when Naruto seemed to overlook her entirely. I'll see if Raven can weave a spell to guard it. So you WMMM. Myra silenced Naruto's words with a kiss, then drew back to find her voice. I appreciate it. She cried out, clutching the bracelet tightly against her heart. Naruto shook his head and smiled, let us make our way back home. Text tell me more about the maids as we go. Indeed. Did you know they have various dresses for the summer season? Pamela mentioned that in that season, people tend to wear less, and there was one outfit that seemed to leave almost nothing to the imagination. She was ready for the warmth of summer. I don't believe. Naruto offered a sardonic smile. What? Nothing. When they got back home, Naruto summoned Sandra, and he began to train once more with Myra, who beamed with joy. Face me, Myra. Naruto called out, his voice cutting through the air with urgency. Absolutely. The night wore on with the weight of training, and when it finally came to an end, Myra found herself sharing a bed with Naruto, a quiet honor in the stillness of the dark. And somehow, she fell asleep right away, though she had never needed sleep before. On the following morning, Naruto savored a hearty breakfast, filled with his favorites, including sausage omelets adorned with diced vegetables. Usually, it was Pamela who prepared the meals for all, but this time, it appeared that Myra had taken on the task of breakfast. The spread of food lay on a table just beyond the RV, and all were seated to eat, save for Myra, who made her way to Naruto's side. This is all fine, truly, but when did you come to know how, Myra? Naruto inquired, his mouth full of food, the words tumbling out with the urgency of hunger. I watched Pamela do it several times and asked her about your favorites. Is it good, master? Myra asked, her voice barely above a whisper, a flush creeping across her cheeks. You did well. Indeed. Myra leaped with joy, then bowed her head close to Naruto, seeking his approval. Observing this, Naruto let out a soft laugh and affectionately ruffled her hair, a gesture she had quickly come to cherish. MMM. Myra softly sighed, savoring the warmth of her master's strong hand. I suppose it's merely adequate. Allow me to take the reins in the kitchen next time, and I assure you, it will be a delight. Harley spoke. The villainess had often wished for the softness of Pamela, yet now there was another presence to consider. She liked the food, evident in the empty plate before her. I understand. Myra looked at Harley's plate, then back at her, a fleeting, self-satisfied smile crossing her face. Harley frowned at the gesture, a fire kindling within her, ready to unleash a few sharp words in response. But then Naruto caught her eye, beckoning her to approach him, and she hesitated, the moment hanging heavy in the air. She moved to him, a reluctant grace in her steps, and settled into his lap, her lips forming a sulky pout. Harley. You've learned your lesson. I regret it. Sweetheart. The way you discipline her feels more like indulgence, Sandra remarked. I suppose I can see the truth in that. Pamela shook her head, a quiet defiance in her eyes, while Raven offered a solemn nod, a shared understanding passing between them. I guess there's nothing I can do about it. Text I find it charming when she shows a hint of jealousy. Naruto smiled, his fingers lightly grazing Harley's flushed cheek, a moment of tenderness in the air. Only a person of your kind. Raven sighed, grappling with the reasons that drew her to this kind of man. Harley scowled, a flush creeping across his cheeks. I'm not jealous. I am merely presenting the truth. Yet, all around her, they exchanged glances that spoke volumes, igniting a deeper fire within her. Now, don't be too hard on the girl consumed by jealousy. Naruto let out a soft chuckle, then pressed a tender kiss to the villainous cheek, coaxing a reluctant smile from her despite the lingering anger in her eyes. I despise you. Harley pouted once more, then took hold of her man's face, pressing her warm lips against his. The girls often found themselves sharing kisses with Naruto, yet a longing stirred within them to savor his lips too, a desire Naruto indulged without hesitation. After breakfast was finished, Naruto would return to his training in martial arts. Naruto felt a twinge of regret for not pursuing dragon magic, yet he held on to the conviction that under Sandra's guidance, he could harness his physical prowess more effectively in the fray. Sandra found herself stepping into a more prominent role in teaching after receiving a note from Naruto. She sensed her body growing more robust, harmonizing with the pulse of her own vitality. If she were to dedicate herself to practice, she might find herself 2, perhaps even 5 times stronger than the person she once was, and beyond. The thought stirred a fleeting smile on the assassin's lips as she issued commands to Naruto with a sharpness that cut through the air. Stand tall. No. Do not place any burden there. Consider it a form of movement. I must confess, dancing is not my strong suit. Truth be told, I can't say I know the first thing about dancing. Naruto furrowed his brow, repeating the movements with a sense of determination. It's not something to be compelled. It must resonate deep inside you. Sandra leaned into him, her warmth enveloping his back, subtly urging him to follow her lead with each gentle shift of her form. Naruto felt the weight of Sandra's presence against him, a stirring in his chest, yet he fought to push those thoughts aside and focused intently on his lessons. At first, it moved with a certain hesitance, but in time, Naruto began to mirror Sandra's actions, finding his own rhythm without much direction from her. As he concentrated, a heavy breath brushed against his ear, and he recognized it as Sandra's presence beside him. Impish woman. I seek to understand in this place. He spoke to her in his mind. Sandra felt a jolt of surprise at the sound of his voice echoing in her mind, yet the thrill of her growing desire for him took precedence over everything else. As his powerful muscles eased, a strange thrill coursed through her. The scent of him, rugged and undeniably masculine, only deepened her desire. I guess we can call this her day, Pamela remarked, observing Sandra's behavior. Why is it that I cannot become a master of martial arts? Harley snarled, flames dancing in her palms like a wild spirit unleashed. She had grown accustomed to the magic, able now to swell the flames to the size of a modest campfire. Yet, that was not the sole endeavor she was engaged in. She was also honing her beast transformation. At first, it felt odd, but she sensed a peculiar strength within her. When she tapped into it, her body began to transform. The change brought forth a remarkable surge in her strength, speed, and agility, elevating them to near superhuman heights. Yet she faced a dilemma. The more she tapped into this force, the more her reason slipped away. Fortune smiled upon her, for the dragon essence from the brand held her back from the brink. Pamela, however, had no real need for training. She felt her strength swell, a quiet power drawn from the earth around her. The vitality of the plants surged around her, as if urging her to find her strength within their embrace. She never had the opportunity to reveal her true strength, yet she held a conviction that with her utmost effort, she could seize control of an entire city alone if she so desired. Pamela considered the idea of learning a few spells, yet deep down, she sensed it held little value for her. Maybe someday, she will come to understand the necessity of learning. Raven immersed herself in the art of spellcraft. She had a handful she couldn't quite wield before, burdened by the weight of her own magical energy, but now that was no longer an issue. More than once, she found herself pressing Naruto about dragon magic, yearning to weave it into her own craft to forge spells of greater strength. She refused to take a back seat in the struggle against her father, who likely sought to end Naruto's life. She would not allow it. Raven would choose death over witnessing her beloved's fall before her very eyes. The half-demon understood the weight of the brand, a mark that would claim her life upon her death. Yet, there was a glimmer of hope. Someone as formidable and cunning as Trigon might alter her fate, should Naruto prove insufficiently strong. Perhaps I could employ the brand to, yes, I shall refine this. Raven paused, a moment of contemplation hanging in the air, before she slipped away, leaving behind a fleeting kiss from Naruto. She has truly succumbed to it. Myra, much like Pamela, found that training was unnecessary. Everything flowed to her with an ease that Naruto could only label as hacks. She might possess a strength beyond his, were she truly a dragon instead. She did not possess the sheer force and swiftness to conquer Naruto, yet she was not far off the mark. Her transformation was tied to that moment. She could no longer twist her form into vines, yet she discovered a new power, one that allowed her to draw energy from the sun. Myra received several invitations to spar with Naruto, yet she found herself lost in the glow of screens, watching videos about maids. In that haze, she stumbled upon something known as anime. So, one master could have so many maids. No, I shall be the sole servant for my master, she stated, her gaze fixed on the anime, absorbed in every moment. A small warning about lemons, heed it well. A week slipped away, and the moment arrived for Sandra to depart, though her heart resisted the notion entirely. She felt a deep pride in Naruto's progress, a quiet satisfaction in the way he took her almost every night. It was as though he sought to etch his presence into her very being, and she relished each moment of it. She called out to him, her voice echoing in the stillness, vowing time and again that she would return to him, to stand by him for good, even as the night of her departure unfolded before them. I swear. Ilah. She ascended once more as she was claimed from behind by the men she now calls her husband. As she cried out, a well-known heat surged within her, pushing her to the brink. The joy was so profound that her body quivered, reaching another height simply from being embraced. Sandra accepted the role of this man's outlet for his desires, a thought that lingered until his lips met hers, turning her world upside down as he flipped her onto her back. No. I will love him until my last breath. Sandra pressed her lips to his, each kiss fervent, while tears slipped down her cheeks, unbidden and raw. The once great killer lay shattered, transformed into a woman who knew the depths of love. Sandra stumbled out of the RV, her legs unsteady beneath her. She dashed through the forest, moving with a frantic urgency that suggested she was fleeing for her very life, and indeed, she was. She hurried through her tasks, driven by the desire to share her life with the men she loved. Naruto then opted to get some rest, as he believed it would be necessary for the challenges ahead. Soon, morning would arrive, and Naruto was stirred awake by an unusual sound emanating from beneath his blanket. Moments later, Naruto began to experience a sensation of pleasure emanating from his lower body, eliciting a groan from him. He suspected it would be Harley, as she was the only one likely to take such an action against him, but then he heard a moan. Please expedite the process and provide it to me. A recognizable voice murmured softly. Raven. He murmured, and almost instantly, the enjoyment ceased, albeit briefly. Nonetheless, it informed Naruto that he was correct, and shortly thereafter, he would remove the blanket from himself. He witnessed a striking scene where a demonized version of Raven engaged in an intimate act, characterized by a tongue that resembled that of a snake. Her movements were initially slow and uncoordinated, but they began to accelerate as she sensed his gaze upon her. The half-demon has not previously engaged in such an action, yet her intense and fiery tongue compensated for it. While such an experience might cause distress for an average individual, for Naruto, it represented one of the most enjoyable sensations he has ever encountered. It didn't take long for him to release his warmth into her mouth. Raven made a concerted effort to consume it entirely but ultimately had to withdraw, allowing the remainder of Naruto's essence to coat her face as she transitioned back to her original form. The half-demon appeared momentarily disoriented before her face flushed a deep shade of red. Her initial intention was solely to be in proximity to him for the purpose of practicing the new spell she was developing, yet the scent he emanated became overwhelmingly distracting. I apologize. Raven murmured as she vanished into thin air. Naruto felt an intense urge to summon Raven back into the room, but before he could lose his composure, he called for Pamela to help him regain his calm. Throughout the remainder of the morning, Raven dedicated herself to evading Naruto and concentrated on the spell she was developing. Despite his training, Naruto found it challenging to focus, as thoughts of Raven continually occupied his mind. He soon realized that it was not effective and opted to clear his mind by venturing into the city with Tikal perched on his shoulder. Gently stroking, the cat's head appeared to provide a sense of calm, and Tikal appreciated it, as it was quite enjoyable. Batman, I have successfully determined the location of your former associate, Cyborg stated as he operated his holographic computer. We will ascertain her plans for this evening, Bruce responded. I require Hawk and Dove to accompany me on this matter. Diana, can you inform me of Diana's whereabouts? He inquired about her absence from the meeting room. Dawn responded, she mentioned that she had an important matter to attend to. What an impressive date. Hank chuckled, yet the others appeared unamused, leading him to frown. A leisurely walk through the city provided a welcome distraction, as the ambient sounds effectively muted Naruto's thoughts, with Tikal accompanying him throughout the experience. A few individuals attempted to approach the uniquely appearing cat, but it would hiss at them while moving near Naruto. I am feeling significantly improved now. I need to return to my training regimen. Naruto spoke softly. We should visit a pet shop. You are deserving of a reward. He communicated mentally with the cat. Upon hearing the word treat, Tikal exhibited a noticeable increase in enthusiasm as they made their way to the pet store. Hello. Welcome to our platform. The associate at the door was instantly intrigued by Naruto's distinctive appearance, leading them to briefly lose track of the name of their store. I see. Could you please direct me to the aisle where the cat treats are located? he inquired. Adjacent to the feline playthings. She responded while indicating a specific direction. I appreciate your assistance. Naruto proceeded down the aisle in search of a suitable treat for Tikal. The associate was leaning over her register to observe Naruto's back, her cheeks slightly flushed. Impressive. Excuse me, ma'am, I am currently unavailable. However, closed. The brief visit to the pet store proved to be somewhat tiring, as Naruto was consistently approached by the girl who welcomed him. She inquired whether he had an Instagram or Snapchat account while also asking about the breed of Tikal the cat. The young woman attempted to engage in casual conversation to encourage him to share more, but Naruto remained unresponsive. Fortunately, a manager recognized her and reinstated her to her position. After selecting the treats that Tikal chose, he proceeded to a different cashier to complete the transaction. As he was departing, he recognized a familiar face. It was one of the women he and Harley had rescued during their date night. Upon seeing her, Naruto recalled his intention to visit them to offer assistance, a plan he had overlooked amidst recent events. The woman appeared to be in her mid-30s, featuring long brown hair and green eyes. She was the individual who safeguarded the young boy at the bar. A mess. Naruto approached her, prompting the woman to startle slightly as her thoughts had been elsewhere. Hello, it is you. The woman offered a smile as she extended her hand for a handshake. I am pleased to observe that you are in good health. She expressed her contentment with a sigh. I can express a similar sentiment regarding you. Naruto displayed a smile. He appreciated the woman as she evoked memories of his mother and her protective nature towards him. She had no obligation to defend the little boy, yet she chose to do so despite the uncertainty surrounding her future. I do not observe that young lady accompanying you. She has returned home. I hope all is well with you and the team. Naruto responded. I am managing well, I believe. I maintain communication with Sarah and several others. It seems you are not familiar with my name. My name is Narissa. Sarah informed you about the back exit. I have something to share with you. Shall we take a seat and discuss this if that is agreeable to you? That is acceptable. Naruto acknowledged with a nod. Shortly thereafter, they located a coffee shop and took a seat outside after obtaining their beverages. Narissa proceeded to recount the events that transpired following that day. The police discovered that the individuals whom Naruto had assaulted perished in the fire. It has come to light that one of the women who was released provided information to the police regarding the matter. However, they were unable to recall Naruto's appearance, leading to its discontinuation. The individuals who remained with Naruto provided false information, attributing the actions to another party, as they sought to protect their benefactors from potential repercussions. Once all matters were resolved, the majority of the women returned to their usual routines. However, a few found themselves without a place to go. Several individuals were runaways who left challenging home environments, with the majority being teenagers. Narissa and Sarah represented the sole exceptions. Given her character, Narissa provided temporary housing for them with the intention of assisting them in their fresh start. However, undertaking such an action legally is exceedingly challenging due to the numerous requirements that must be met. Narissa had a strong desire to adopt the boy. However, he was ultimately placed in the care of his aunt. However, I quickly sensed that something was amiss with the woman and the boy. Alex expressed dissatisfaction regarding the situation. A police officer was required to intervene as he vocally resisted. I sincerely hope to learn about his current status. Narissa exhaled deeply. Observing the woman's face, Naruto noted the evident signs of insufficient sleep, as indicated by the dark circles under her eyes. Naruto should refrain from getting involved. However, he was also curious about the boy's well-being. I will investigate. Are you? You have already accomplished a great deal. It is simply an aspect that remains beyond one's control. Narissa smiled, yet it was evident that the expression was insincere, as Naruto could perceive the underlying pain. She secretly wished that Naruto would assure her, "It will be all right, and I will assist you just as I did on that night." He stood up and departed without saying anything. Manage your expectations, Narissa. She exhaled softly, noticing from the periphery that he had paused on the sidewalk a few feet away before he turned back. He then offered a brief smile, and she instantly realized that he would indeed discover the truth, just as he had mentioned earlier. Narissa contemplated how he would locate her once more, and as she pondered this, the peculiar cat accompanying him approached, carrying a piece of paper in its mouth. It was a figure. "You are indeed a remarkably intelligent feline. Has it disappeared?" Narissa glanced at the number briefly before the cat vanished along with him. Once the area was clear, Naruto ascended into the air and began to traverse from one building to another. Since commencing his training, he has gained greater control over his body and has reduced the noise he makes while moving. Naruto retrieved his phone to contact Pamela and inform her of the situation, but he paused momentarily in the alleyway. "Could you please explain the reason for your following me?" He spoke in solitude. Unexpectedly, an acquaintance descended in front of him. Diana was the individual in question. The hero was not dressed in her official attire, opting instead for casual clothing while retaining the armbands. She presented herself elegantly in her selection of attire, consisting of a white t-shirt paired with a black jacket and jeans. What can one anticipate from a woman shaped by divine forces? Was she the result of the prohibited union between Zeus and Hippolyta? Diana possesses exceptional genetic traits. Naruto sensed Kurama starting to growl within his mind, reflecting his ongoing disdain for deities. Diana raised her hands in a gesture of goodwill, stating, "I come in peace." "Is Batman aware that you are engaging in this activity?" Naruto inquired. Diana shook her head. "No, I understand he intends to involve you, but I simply seek answers to my questions." "What is the reason for my response?" "There is no reason provided. It would simply indicate that I lack the ability to assess character effectively. This is not an unprecedented occurrence." She responded with a subtle smile. "Did that happen even after I knocked you out?" He displayed a slight smirk. "The memory of the pain remains vivid." Diana smiled softly while gently rubbing her arms. "Nonetheless, I am not concerned with the past. I am here seeking answers. Stay tuned for more." Thank you for watching this amazing video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel for more content. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.